at the Open Mobile Summit and pleased to be joined by David Foos. He is the CEO of Room5. And David, thanks so much for joining us.
You bet, no problem.
So tell us a little bit about your role and what the company does.
So as you say, I'm CEO of Room5. Room5 is a software consulting company. We focus primarily on embedded software development, which is why we're involved in the mobile space and have been for quite some time. But as you know, embedded devices are expanding everywhere, which means that the business is going across many different sectors today. Not just mobile, but consumer electronic devices and also into areas like defense and aerospace as well.
So you're here, you're talking about new innovations, the pace of it in particular, the innovations and the introductions, the pace is going more rapidly than ever. Good thing or a bad thing?
Fantastic, and personally it is the most exciting time in the industry right now because we have relatively inexpensive devices, physical devices. We have highly accessible, robust software in the form of operating systems like Android.
Right.
And what that enables companies to do is innovate more rapidly and deliver more comprehensive products than they ever have before.
So how are you working with your clients and what's the trend you see with them?
There's a few different trends. One is that the development cycles have increased, the speed has increased. The challenge that we're faced with today is that there are the pace at which craftsmen, if I can think of a better word for it, who are able to actually develop and deploy these products is not increasing with the pace of demand. And so there's a big gap for a lot of companies who are looking to build and deploy new products successfully at the speed they want to.
And how are they filling the gap?
Well, I mean,
this is
part of where Room5 comes in, certainly. We're happy to help out, and a lot of the work that we do is on new products that are kind of tip the spear into the marketplace, which is what we really specialize in.
Now you talk about this pace of innovation. I mean, clearly it's a bit of a land rush right now, gold rush, however you want to phrase it. Not everyone's making it though. I mean, the feedback loop is so much quicker now. That it certainly helps some folks, though, maybe get to the next level.
Yeah, certainly there's no lack of dead bodies by the side of the road. We do see people who start and fail. We see people who start and restart sometimes as well. Some of that can be tracked back to challenges in vision, challenges in deploying ideas. Execution is always a critical component as well, and therein lies the problem. From your idea to the point that you execute that idea,
right.
That's where all the really hard work comes in play. And
the design process, and in some cases, it's been shortened so much. Is that hamstringing some companies, though, trying to get to market maybe before they're ready?
I think it can. I think you can fall on two sides there. One is deploying too soon when you're not ready, and the other is waiting too long. And it's really a balancing act to figure out which way you want to be, because in some sense you don't want to wait too long to deploy, because every product and every idea needs to face the onslaught of commercial engagement and public engagement. But there's a natural tendency to want to avoid public failure, right? I mean, you want everything to be a success, but the fact of the matter is we're all going to fail. And so learning to fail successfully and adapt rapidly is really critical in the process of maturing ideas and products.
Well, and failing also doesn't help attract VC dollars and funding, but you also talk a lot about crowdfunding, though, and how is crowdfunding, we know it's filling the gap some, but are people becoming a little bit more selective now in what they're choosing to back? And
crowdfunding, I like the trend as a whole for a number of reasons, because first off, there's a lot of ideas that are being crowdfunded today that would never have seen the light of day before that, because the inventor or the team would not have probably put the money together to actually do it. So there's an element that, let's call it fast tracking new ideas. I love that piece of it because at the end of the day, I think the more new ideas that get tested in the marketplace, the sooner is a good thing, and crowdfunding allows that to happen.
Is it a little bit of a fad, though? People rushing in to be a backer of something. I mean, when do we see more realistic returns? Are people expecting returns on their investment, even though they're crowdfunding and maybe only giving $10 or $100 or whatever?
I think that there's a bit of mix there. I think typically the smaller projects, a few $1,000s, for example, or let's say less than $100,000 for medium-sized projects. there's a fairly low expectation at the individual level. If you got 50,000 people tossing in a few bucks, there's a pretty low expectation that you're going to get something back, right? You're just kind of enthusiastically supporting.
Right.
But some of these efforts, and I think of the Ubuntu Edge, for example, which was well talked about in the mobile space. Very lofty goal, $35 million raise is huge for a crowdfunding effort.
Yeah.
And they fell well short of it. I think they ended up somewhere around 13 or 15 million.
Still a pretty large sum.
A very large sum of crowdfunded money.
I think most people would be happy with that.
So in some ways it failed, but in other ways, that was a huge raise, right? There's no doubt there are some things that are more appropriately crowdfunded than others.
Can companies continue to push this design process, this rush to get to market? Like, they're pushing the pace. Innovation seems to be coming faster and faster, but at some point it seems like they'll maybe push it too fast. Is that possible?
I'd like to say no, because as a fan of innovation, I think it just moves at the pace it moves, and that's largely based on the people who are doing the innovation, right? I think we're in a cycle right now where there is a lot of new innovation as opposed to mirroring and just repeating old ideas. I think we have been for the last 3 years kind of in the mobile space in the era of what I call the flat black slab, which is every phone looks like every other phone, right? We're beginning to see some new things now from some of the larger manufacturers, and I think both Samsung and LG with some of their curved designs is a good example of that. I think what we're seeing in the mobile space in the area of wearables will also potentially break some new ground and begin to expand that larger device of mobile in the mobile ecosystem.
What's going to push us over the edge towards that? Is it what's going to be the reason to go and buy that?
There's almost always someone who hits the nail on the head and lights everyone's imagination up.
Like Apple with the iPad. The tablet had been tried, failed.
The slate, right? It was before it was a tablet, it was a slate, and it was a miserable failure in the broad sense. The tablet was truly revolutionary because it brought a completely different user experience to play. I think we see some innovators, Nike being one of them, who's very much a non-standard mobile player, who certainly is already in the wearables market. They will continue, I think, to be successful with what they're doing. Jabra is doing some interesting things in the same vein. So some new players, some existing players, I think will basically deploy valuable wearable mobile technology.
So it could be a surprising company. It may not even be a technology company.
It could be a fashion company.
Well, certainly it seems like that's the marriage, right? For wearables to make them successful, it not only needs to work, because currently our phones work pretty well, but it's got to be something. So do you think maybe you see Burberry already being poached by Apple, right? So you see this marriage is happening as we speak.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. I think it's inevitable, and I think for the right reasons too. I think Apple is iconic for someone who's been successful at making technology fashionable, right? And I think it's going to be an important element in the matrix of wearables.
Yeah. What about, you talk about the past couple of years, but there's also another trend, and I'm wondering when we begin to see more consumer pushback on planned obsolescence. You've got to get, it stops working and the batteries aren't charging anymore. You've got to go get the new one. It seems that it's more and more planned obsolescence with particularly mobile phones.
Yeah. We are seeing that we are hitting some saturation numbers on smartphones today, and obsolescence.
Obviously, in mature markets.
In mature markets, obviously. Obsolescence is a strategy potentially in addressing that, because if you're a device manufacturer, obviously you're looking to increase your volumes.
Right.
I'm a terrible sample case for this because I always have to have the newest thing, no matter what it is. But I'm not representative of the broader market. Although I think we do see people getting more excited about the latest technology and really wanting to adopt that into their lives.
But still, it's a pretty high price tag when you sort of look out at the broader economy. Still a very difficult job market here in the States. Europe, even more difficult.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, if you see, them sort of lengthening it, or maybe there's another solution.
You know, I don't have
The trade-in solution sort of seems like a toe in the water by Apple.
Yeah,
To not only to get you into the new Apple, and it keeps you in the fold and sort of helps you to upgrade. So maybe that's sort of an acknowledgement of the times. Or
I think what we may see,
more marketing strategy.
Yeah, what we may see there is some interesting strategies like a trade-in program. But I think we'll most likely in the short term we'll see fewer different kinds of devices with a focus on doing more volume on individual models. It's just a result. Because what we have right now, as you mentioned in the larger economy, is a bit of a wet blanket across the global economy right now, which is going to slow things down, I think, as a result.
I mean, tech has certainly been a bright spot in terms in this, the new innovations. It's the gotta have it thing right now. But at some point, people will say, my tablet works great, my phone works great.
Do I have to have it now?
What's going to move me? You know, you didn't know you needed the iPad until you got a hold of one, and then suddenly you created. So I'm just curious, you know, do you see a category? Wearable certainly seems to be one that people talk about. That's going to be the thing you didn't know you needed until you have it.
I couldn't put my finger on that today, but I think you hit the nail on the head, which is if you look at the two ends of the spectrum, one being evolutionary devices, one being revolutionary. Evolutionary, the question is, have I gotten enough incremental value that I care? Right? Revolutionary being, okay, this is completely going to transform the way I view this product or service forever and ever.
It's going to change my life.
You're going to have more people, obviously, who will jump into a spend on the revolutionary side.
Lastly, what's the trend you see right now? You talk about embedded software. What is the sort of overarching trend of the moment for that business?
Well, as I said before, an explosion of embedded devices into all kinds of different areas of our lives. And that's driven by inexpensive or less expensive silicon, but high performance. I think we're going to see the ecosystem of devices expand, which, if it's done right, I believe will give the consumer more potentially siloed value. Wearable healthcare, I think, is a one that's ripe, and there's a lot of people exploring how to optimize that vertical right now.
And you're talking about maybe a defibrillator implanted, or you're talking about a fuel band from Nike. I mean, there's a lot of different things that are
I can see some
wearable.
legal challenges around shocking someone's heart with a wearable, but I'm sure someone may want to tackle that one. I think the health and wellness general sector on blood pressure, heart rate, blood sugar management monitoring, I think those things are low-hanging fruits in that area as well. Right. That combined with the fact that we know already that there are some very large retailers who are already in healthcare. Walmart's a good example, right? And they actually have a large healthcare presence in their in-store clinics already. So they're a potential,
and certainly the drugstore chains
innovator
as well.
Innovators in this space who want to basically say, how do I extend my services, beyond my store walls, with some of this new technology.
All right. Well, David Foos, the CEO of Room5, thanks so much for joining us.
You bet. Thanks so much for your time.